For what purpose does the from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and to insert extraneous material on S-49.
Without objection.
I move that the House suspend the rules and pass S-49 to designate the outstation of the Department of Veterans Affairs in North Ogden, Utah as the Major Brent Taylor Vet Center outstation.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Senate 49, an act to designate the outstation of the Department of Veterans Affairs in North Ogden, Utah as the Major Brent Taylor Vet Center outstation.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from California, Mr. Tucano, and the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Rowe, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I rise to remember the life of Major Brent Russell Taylor, who was killed in Afghanistan on November 3rd, 2018. I thank my colleague, Mr. Bishop from Utah, for bringing this bill before us so that we all may be able to pay tribute to a selfless public servant. Brent was born on July 6, 1979 in Ogden, Utah, the second of 8 children of Stephen and Tamara Jones Taylor. 5 of his brothers joined him in his military service in the Army National Guard. At an early age, Brent showed his passion for business and politics. During his senior year at Chandler High School, he earned his Eagle Scout Award and was elected student body president. He graduated in 1997. Brent was a man of faith. He was a lifelong member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and he spent 2 years serving as a missionary for the church in the Brazil Maceió mission in 1990 from the year 2000. This time of full time service largely impacted the course of the rest of his life. After his mission, Brent attended Brigham Young University, where he met Jenny Kristen Ashworth on a blind date less than a month after she returned from her own full-time service as a church missionary in the Chile Santiago North Mission. They enjoyed a sweet courtship and were engaged on a Saturday in June of 2003. Brent enlisted as a soldier in the Utah National Guard the following Tuesday, with Jenny proudly by his side. They married on September 18th, 2003. In 2006, he was commissioned as a second lieutenant from Brigham Young University. He went on to work for the Defense Intelligence Agency, the National Ground Intelligence Center, and the Department of Homeland Security. Over the course of 15 years, he served in the Utah Army National Guard, deploying 4 times in support of operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. In 2009, he was elected to further serve his community by sitting on the North Ogden City Council. And in 2013, he was elected mayor of North Ogden, Utah. In 2018, Major Taylor, a Purple Heart recipient, left on his 4th deployment, acting as an advisor to the Afghan Border Police. He was the first known city mayor in Utah history to deploy for wartime service. Tragically, on November 3rd, the 39-year-old Major Taylor was killed in an insider attack by an Afghan trainee he was trying to help. In addition to his wife, Jenny, Major Taylor is survived by 7 children: Megan, Alex, Jacob, Ellie, Jonathan, and Caroline. He is also survived by his parents and several siblings. In letters to his wife Jenny and his children, his comrade, Afghan Air Force Major Abdul Rahman, said of Major Taylor, "He died on our soil, but he died for the success of freedom and democracy in both of our countries. Your father was a loving, caring, and compassionate man whose life just wasn't meaningful, it was inspirational." In his last message to his community on October 28, 2018, Major Taylor wrote, and I quote, "It was beautiful to see over 4 million Afghan men and women brave threats and deadly attacks to vote in Afghanistan's first parliamentary elections in 8 years. Many American, NATO allies, and Afghan troops have died to make moments like this possible. As the USA gets ready to vote in our own election next week, I hope everyone back home exercises their precious right to vote." End quote. And he also further wrote, "And that whether the Republicans or the Democrats win, that we all remember that we have far more as Americans that unites us than divides us." As lawmakers, the least we can do to honor Major Taylor is to come together to pass S-49 into law. His legacy of fighting to protect democracy and freedom and working to unite his community and all Americans must never be forgotten. We can all learn from Major Taylor's example to serve, as he would say, whenever and however I can. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues and I owe a debt of gratitude to Major Brent Russell Taylor and the entire Taylor family for their service and sacrifice to our nation. I fully support this bill, naming the Department of Veterans Affairs Vet Center in North Ogden, Utah, as the Major Brent Taylor Vet Center Outstation, and urge my colleagues to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from California reserves. The gentleman from Tennessee is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of Senate Bill 49, a bill to designate the outstation of the Department of Veterans Affairs Vet Center in North Ogden, Utah as the Major Brent Taylor Vet Center outstation. This bill is sponsored by Senator Mike Lee of Utah and is a companion bill to H.R. 54, which is sponsored by Congressman Rob Bishop, also of Utah. I thank both of them for working to honor Major Trent in this way. Having lost friends and classmates in Vietnam, I know the loss that this family is suffering is incalculable. Family, friends, community, state, and nation mourn his loss. Major Taylor's life was characterized by service both in and out of uniform, and I am pleased to strongly support this bill in his memory. Major Taylor represents all that is right and good in America. My colleague, Congressman Chris Smith of Utah, is here today to speak in support of this bill as well, as he has a personal connection to the Taylor family, and I yield as much time as he may consume to the gentleman from Utah to detail the incredible life that Major Taylor led and the legacy that he leaves behind.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to, as these other gentlemen have before me, to honor a man who gave everything he had to his God, his family, and his country. These three great loyalties guided the life of Major Brent Taylor and the lives of his devoted wife and children. As has been indicated, I come from generations of military service. Some of my family had the great honor of serving with Major Taylor. We know from personal experience the great leader and the great man that he was. 15 years ago, Brent Taylor, hand in hand with his new fiancée, Jenny, walked into a recruiting office to enlist in the Army. Since then, this man and his family, and it is so important that we remember his family and the many other families of military members who sacrifice and serve as well. Well, this man and his family have lived a life of patriotic, exemplary service. He deployed twice to Iraq in 2006 and again in 2007, and served in Afghanistan in 2012. For his outstanding dedication to duty during combat operations in Iraq, Major Taylor was awarded the Bronze Star. This citation credited the ability of Major Taylor to think calmly and decisively, to keep his subordinates safe while traversing more than 600,000 miles throughout Iraq, areas that's riddled with improvised explosive devices and was ripe for ambush. This award recognized Major Taylor's tendency to do more than just carry out the assigned task. He was a man who went above and beyond to make a positive difference in the world, believing that his actions to be a small sacrifice compared to what so many in our nation's history have given up to keep this the land of the free and the home of the brave. Such exemplary service is equally evident in his life outside of the military. After serving as a city councilman, his community and neighbors so entrusted him to lead that they elected him to be the mayor of North Ogden City. In this role, Major Taylor's initiatives included improvements to public works and infrastructure, attracting businesses to the community center. The citizens of the community loved his snowplow updates, and in Utah we get a lot of, and his ability to see potential and possibility in everything around him. Serving as mayor was one of the greatest honor of Major Taylor's life and the highlight of his civilian professional career. He believed that service is really what leadership is about. On January 8, 2018, Major Taylor announced that he would temporarily step down as mayor to continue his service as a member of the Army National Guard on what would be his fourth and final deployment. He didn't deploy just once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times. He answered the call to serve. And once again, remembering his family, they answered the call to allow their husband and their father to serve. This man recognized that there was an immediate need for his experience and skills and gracefully rose to accept the call to serve in our nation's longest war in Afghanistan. In his final months of deployment, Major Taylor was killed by an apparent inside attack on November 3, 2018, while training Afghan security forces. A loving husband and devoted father, Major Taylor is survived by his wife, Jenny, and as you see here, his 7 beautiful children, Megan, Lincoln, Alex, Jacob, Ellie, Jonathan, and Caroline. And one thing I am certain Major Taylor would say, his family was far and away the most important thing in his life. Nothing made him more proud or meant more to him than his wife and his children. The impression that Major Taylor left was profound. He called on each of us to find some way to brighten someone else's day, to lift another's burden, to make our city, our state, our county, our nation a better place. This man and his family paid the ultimate sacrifice to fulfill this call. So it's only well and fitting that as a tribute to this amazing life, Congress name a facility in his honor of his shining example of service and sacrifice. As has been mentioned, the Department of Veterans Affairs Outstation in North Ogden City will provide arrangements to help guide veterans and their families as they transition from the military to civilian life. Major Taylor recognized that military service involves the entire family. As such, I'm proud to support the designation of this facility, located in a city that he loved and served and called home, as the Major Brent Taylor Vet Center Outstation. The naming of the building will never repay the debt the nation owes to Major Taylor and his family, but it can stand as a humble reminder of the faithful man who lived and died in the service of his God, his family, and his country. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Tennessee is recognized.
Reserve.
The gentleman from Tennessee reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to say to my friend and colleague, the gentleman from Utah, that our hearts go out to the families. When I read the names of the 7 children, it was a very difficult moment for me. And we certainly are paying tribute today to his family, his children, his community of North Ogden, where he served as mayor. So it's our tribute to him. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record 3 letters. A letter from Frank Mahan, the commander of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Utah, and a letter from G. Hayes Stromness, commander of the American Legion Department of Utah, and a letter from Nick Flake, commander of the VFW Department of Utah, all in support of S-49.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I have no further speakers, and I'm prepared to close.
Gentleman from Tennessee is recognized.
Thank you. I have no further speakers. And Mr. Speaker, I'm prepared to close.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is one of the more difficult things that we do, and obviously to see a beautiful family like this, whose dad and whose husband have made the ultimate sacrifice, is difficult for me to stand here and understand the pain that they have. I sometimes read Revelation 21:4. That may help just a little bit. And I want to thank that family for their service and wish them nothing but Godspeed going forward. They'll have some tough days, I know, ahead of them, but this is a grateful nation, and we very much appreciate his service to our great country. It's not better for its laws. Our country is not. I encourage my colleagues to support this bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I echo the comments of my colleague from Tennessee. We are a grateful nation, and I am privileged to take part in this tribute to Major Brent Russell Taylor, and I urge my colleagues to support this legislation. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass Senate 49? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The bill is passed and without objection.
Mr. Speaker,
The gentleman from California.
I request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. All those in favor of taking this vote by the yeas and nays will rise and remain standing. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule, the chair declares that the House in recess until approximately 6:30 p.m. today.